I feel like I say this every time. I can't wait for you to hear this episode, but it's true. Once again, we have an amazing guest, Dr. Andrew Bauman, and we're talking this episode about men. Not voyeuristically, not saying this
Mhm.
is what they need to do, but I love the conversation you're going to get to hear because
Yeah.
Andrew Bauman is a champion of men, and I love
Yeah.
hearing the empowering way that he is
Mhm.
helping men honor themselves. And so
Mhm.
in this episode, I'm glad that we get to talk about specifically how the work that we're doing ahead of being in a marriage is going to impact not just the marriage of the future, but like how we show up to dating. Doing our
Yeah.
own work sets us up not only to be effective partners later, but also it
Yeah.
helps us in that discerning process that dating is. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm really super geeked about sharing with you this conversation with Dr. Bauman.
Yeah, I can't wait. One of my favorite moments was we really didn't even have enough time to go into it, but we're going to have even more conversations about somatic work and body work as we move forward in new episodes. But he just talked about the importance for women of really, really, really trusting your intuition in romantic relationships. I think sometimes, it can be like, oh, don't be judgmental or just give the guy a chance or you're being too critical. And one of the things that he really just invited us back to is, girl, go with your gut. Like if someone feels off to you, something might be off to you. And not in
Yeah.
a way that judges men, but in a way that honors the truth telling required in romantic relationships to set couples up for success. So I loved it. I've followed Andrew's work for a long time. He is the founder and director of the Christian Counseling Center for Sexual Health and Trauma. He and his wife do fantastic work around sexuality. I told Andrew, I'm like, I think I own every Bauman book. Some of his books that I love, he has one called How Not to Be an Ass, The Guide to Becoming a Good and Safe Man. He has The Sexually Healthy Man. And then his newest book, Safe Church, all about how to guard against sexism and abuse in Christian communities. And so yeah, I think that when you leave this conversation today, I pray that you get welcomed into just a new realm of resources to really step into more embodiment, more peace, more ownership of your story, and more reclamation of the places where trauma and harm have tried to silence you and stepping into a new story. So we cannot wait for you to hear this conversation with Dr. Andrew Bauman. Welcome to the Dating and Desire podcast, a place for conversations and resources on sexual formation for adult Christians.
I'm Lauren Matthews.
And I'm Bridgett Blood.
Together, we combine our years of ministry experience and time as certified coaches, helping men and women just like you navigate dating in a way that honors your core values.
Each week, you'll hear us talk to therapists, pastors, coaches, and other leaders in the field of sexuality and relationships.
While we acknowledge believers hold various perspectives on this topic,
we're gathered around the belief that our desire is holy,
our body is good,
and our story matters.
Let's dive in.
Andrew, we're so glad you're with us on the podcast today. Thanks for coming to hang out.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I have been just so impacted by your work over the years. I think I actually own every Bauman book that exists.
Hey,
which has been fun. And just love to share it with my friends, both the work that you have done for masculine sexuality and your wife, Christy, and feminine sexuality, and just the work you've both done with grief and all the beautiful, mysterious parts of life that we don't necessarily always have words for. I've appreciated the way that you've trailblazed some really honoring and honest conversations in our world.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your support.
Of course. One of the big things that when I think of your work is your work around embodiment, especially for men. Like, how do we understand, this is probably a new buzzword if people are used to the work they've done in their own life, or even if they're just following therapists on TikTok or Instagram. But this idea that it's important for us to be connected to our body. Typically, culturally, this might be even a little bit of an easier conversation for women. But for men, this is also really important. So we talk about embodiment. What the heck is it? And how can men step into a more embodied life?
Yeah, it's a great question. Basically, so much of the therapeutic work that I have done in my early years was knowing your story, right? It was so much about knowing our trauma and becoming more cognitively aware of our trauma. And there's so much value there, right? That's vital. But what I found the deeper I got into the work was it wasn't enough. And actually, for me personally, it was where I could hide. I had a good mastery of language, and I could hide behind language. So many times I'd go see a therapist or whatever, and I was more articulate with my heart because I had studied, right? I'd gone to grad school, I'd studied the stuff, and yet I was actually using my intellect to distance myself from my vulnerability, right? So it wasn't until I began to do some training with Dr. Robert Masters, and it was so outside of my comfort zone. So, I had been doing story work and stuff for 15 years, and then I go there and there's zero story. And he starts off the session with, "What did you dream about last night?" And I was like, "What? Like, this is
Mhm.
weird." And then within the first 10 minutes, I'm on the ground screaming and crying as he's like digging into my belly, and 8 men are holding me down, and I'm, grieving the loss of my son. And I'm like, how did we get here so quickly? And he found grief in my belly, in my body, hands on. And I was like, whoa, what is this new world? And so for the last 10 years, I've been working in integrating these two fields that have been so helpful for me, the work of Allender methodology and story work, and then also somatic body work. And actually,
Beautiful.
it's been incredibly potent with the men, especially with men who have want to outgrow destructive behaviors. And that's our main focus. And so, because men, especially if they're using pornography or issues of abuse, they've disconnected themselves from their own body because they have to participate in the abuse. They have to lie to themselves. There's a cognitive split. And so, to get us into our bodies is to actually feel what we need to feel so we can outgrow what we need to outgrow.
Yeah. So
It's
good.
interesting to hear your question, the way you framed it, Bridget, because you said, women, there are a lot of women who are ready to talk about being embodied, but as a mom of two under 10 and under boys, I'm struck with how physical little boys are. And we kind of know that innately. Like, all right, you're acting wild. The house is too loud. You got to go outside, run it out, go run around the block or go play. Like, we go to that space with little
Yeah,
boys innately, I
that's right.
think, with that acknowledgement. So it's really cool to hear you say, we're returning. This is not a
Yes,
new topic. This is coming back to maybe a
yes,
younger version who knew. Gotta run it out.
yes.
Gotta feel it.
Exactly, exactly. And then so many men, we've been socialized not that our bodies are bad or that the only way to get it out is through aggression, right? Versus like actually healthy expressions of anger and clean anger and like, yeah, what happens if you can let loose your anger without hurting yourself or anybody else? Right?
So good. That's so good. I love that term clean anger.
Yeah.
I love the term clean anger. I wonder if you just take a hot second to say a little bit more about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Clean anger. It's basically anger's not bad, right? Especially if you're coming from a Christian worldview, you've been taught anger is bad, and I truly believe no, anger is actually an invitation to deeper intimacy. It's when anger is done in a poor way, right? That anger turns to aggression. When you want to dehumanize the other, that's when it becomes a negative thing. And we've had so many poor examples of unhealthy anger that turns to aggression that we just kind of block it all off. But the truth is, especially for the masculine heart, a man who's cut off from his anger is cut off from his strength. He doesn't have a sense of strength if he's cut off from his anger, right? And so we have to teach actually clean, healthy anger.
Yeah, I think all of that is so important. I recently did a session with my somatic coach friend, and I had been meeting with my sexual story work coach for a while, and we've been going through some things. And I remember being in the sessions with her, and I just was like, we're in that box where all my emotional intelligence doesn't work. And she's like, yes, I'm so glad.
Yes,
And so
exactly.
then I was like, yeah, I'm like, I feel really prone to like use all my intelligence of like, well, this is the da 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 da. And so I'm like, I actually really want to feel this. And I think that if I keep approaching this
Yes,
logically, it's not going to bring any healing. And so I reached out to
yes,
my somatic coach friend and we, just did the session. And I think the biggest things I took away from that were, first of all, I said, oh, I'm panicking. And she goes, how do you know you're panicking? I'm like, oh, I can't breathe.
hmm
And I was like, never in my life did I put the two in, I would always say I could always explain to you what the anxiety was. Oh, it's fear about this, it's shame
Yes.
about this. But to actually feel, oh, my body literally cannot breathe when I get into this place. That's really good information for me to have.
Yes.
And as we just were kinda unpacking some stuff, even as she started, like, layering some sensations, and that's when the panic started to rise for me, and I'm go, "Oh gosh," I paused. And it just brought this whole light bulb moment because with my story work coach, I was saying, "Hey, like, these are some sexual moments that I feel like I don't really have a lot of connection to. Can we work through some of those?" And so when I combined the story work with the somatic work, I was like, "Oh, so much of the sexual disconnection in those moments was about sensory overload. It
Yes.
wasn't even about the trust in a relationship, it was about what was happening internally for me." And so,
Yeah,
yeah, I love
exactly.
the parallel of those.
Exactly. Our nervous system, right? Our body keeps the score. All these things that we've been learning about trauma work, right? And how do we begin to tend to the body?
Andrew, our audience is single people, daters, and a lot of your work um, talks about our sexual story. And so I wonder if you can speak to, for those, especially men listening, can you speak to the value of exploring sexual story before partnership?
Yeah.
Um, how does that help? How does that open up things for relational possibility?
Yeah. We can't give what we don't have, right? So if you in a sense want to be sexually healthy, even if you're not, sexually active or in a committed relationship, you have to do that work now. I was taught in the evangelical church that magically once you get married, sex is just like amazing and everything's going to fulfill your life, right? And it's like, wait a minute, no, sex is hard, and you actually can have a relationship with yourself and your own body and your own sexual story and do that heavy lifting, so you're not bringing in all that extra noise into the bedroom, right? So we all experience trauma, we all experience heartache, right? Capital T or little t trauma. Will you honor the stories? Because our unprocessed trauma always comes out sideways in our relationships if we don't deal with it. It's always reenacted in our present day life again and again. And so you got to do that work, whether you're single, you're married, or what. It doesn't matter. Who are you going to become? Continuing to become the type of person that you would like to draw to yourself
Yeah.
if you do
And
want to
these
be in
get
a relationship.
In your work, can you give an example or two of what not attending to your sexual story, how it comes out sideways in
Yeah.
dating?
Yeah, I mean, often my genre that I primarily work with is around compulsive sexual behavior. So a lot of that comes out in pornography use specifically. So it's the type of porn that you're drawn to, right? Or I'll start out with a client. What's your darkest sexual fantasy? What type of porn do you use, right? It's like we start there because, oh, I am drawn to you know. Um, not professional, not high airbrushed amateur pornography. Okay, that's interesting. You're looking for authentic relationship. Okay, you're
Yep.
looking for the real thing. How does that connect to your story? Okay, I'm drawn to older women. Okay, tell me about that desire to be seen by an older woman. Oh, that connects to my mother wound, right? It's all connected, right? So our sexual acting out is not accidental, but we do have to connect the dots to see how it connects to your wounding. And then we have to dive in and connect to that little boy who was not tended to. We have to connect to that harm, or we work with a lot of sexual abuse trauma or with women and men, right? And so we got to get to those connect that sexual abuse and see what was maimed, and how do we go back. Now we can't change the facts of the trauma, but we can change the meaning that the trauma holds. So we actually go into the stories and we actually reenact those stories of trauma, right? We'll go lay down, we'll have them lay down on the bed, and we'll have them close their eyes, and we'll walk through step by step. We'll bring in the sensory and the smells, right? I remember last month in our workshop, we are in the bathtub, with a client working on his bathtub trauma that he had a sexual abuse in the bathtub. And so literally we're in a group, we're all in the bathroom and I'm kneeling down next to the bathtub and he's closing his eyes, screaming in the bathtub. Like we have to take our body to the scene of the crime and then we have to bring in a different meaning. So he begins to bring his voice because he didn't have a voice when he was a child and he was being abused. So he begins to bring his power. He stands up, he roars, he takes
Yeah.
back what was lost, the territory that was taken from him, he reclaims it, and now he can have new meaning when that trauma comes up. When that scene comes up, he no longer can be traumatized because he has his power back.
That's amazing. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with my best friend. Just, as we're continuing to have conversations, I think so much. I have just such beautiful privilege of I get to spend a lot of time with couples in their 40s through their 60s that either are in recovery from unwanted sexual behavior or, whatever it is. They've lived through some hard stuff and they're on the other side in a really beautiful um like I think of the word trenched, like they have worked really hard to build a really beautiful marriage, but it didn't come until after like decades of pain. And so it puts this weird um there's that story word weird. Um right? It puts this interesting perspective for me as a single woman dating in my 30s to go, okay, well, how do I honor the story of the couples that have gone before me to say, hey, we figured out some stuff. Not that we did it perfect and not that it's erasing. When I think about men and women that are dating, engaging their sexual story. What I don't expect to happen is I don't expect that they're going to get married and they're never going to have any trauma or conflict and sex is going to be magical, right? I feel like we kind of sometimes we can replace the purity culture, like, oh, just don't talk about sex at all. It's going to be magical to
That's right.
this therapy lens of, oh, you're going to do all the therapy and you're going to be fine.
Yes.
So, my question with that is what is a healthy understanding when a man and woman is looking for a lifetime partner to say, oh, this person has enough maturity or capacity? Like, are we looking for someone that's gone through all of their trauma? What are we looking for as a marker for someone that actually has the capacity to build a lifetime partnership?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. Have they done the heavy lifting, right? Have they done the emotional heavy lifting? So many of the times people are looking for, well, do they work out? Are they physically healthy versus are they emotionally healthy? Because so many of us will look beautiful on the outside or financially well off and we are emotionally flabby. We are
Ugh.
emotionally atrophied, right? And so I tell guys all the time because I think men are so capable, they have not worked out. They have not lifted. They have not lifted their emotional weights. So let's pick up the emotional weights. Or if they are in relationship, a lot of times they allow their partners to do the emotional labor or the invisible labor, and they don't actually do the emotional heavy lifting. And so, yes, read the books. Talk, begin to, you can join we have an online men's community. Like you can do the heavy lifting, listen to the good podcasts like yours, like begin to write your own story out, go to therapy, like start doing the work so you
Mhm.
can actually build up your inner world. Too many men have neglected their inner world, their inner territory, and it's time to tend to that landscape because it's rich and it's good and it's beautiful.
Mm, yeah.
And because relationship is going to reveal other layers, having
Yes.
already cultivated your self relationship. I think about this and the people that I coach, we do all of this inner work and then they get into their relationship and they're like, Coach Lauren, what the heck? And I'm like, I know it's just starting. It's so amazing. But having done that heavy lifting and getting, even if nothing is accomplished, everything is not accomplished, is what I mean, you will have the skill sets to say, oh, I know what to do when it feels like this. I felt this feeling on my own. So I'm more equipped, more ready to do this in
Yes.
partnership with my girlfriend or wife.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. And as you said, like our relationships just expose us even more. Right. So it's like continue to do that, continue to clean your side of the street so you know who you are because, relationships difficult, the greatest taste of heaven and the greatest taste of hell in one relationship.
So good. my follow-up question for both of you guys on that is the what's the range of normal provoking that happens when you step into a romantic relationship and this is not a good fit exposure? Like, how does that work? How
Yeah.
do we know that it's like it's just a normal chiseling of two people and no, there's enough friction here that this is harmful?
I think it's in the midst of conflict, right? So when you are in the midst of conflict, who shows up? When you make a boundary and they step over it, or when you make a boundary and they freak out, right? Like that's going to expose who they really are in the midst of high stress, right? Situations. Versus when everything's going great and you're, honeymooning it, like, yeah, that's easy. But what happens when, shit hits the fan? Like who do they become? Who are they? And that's the real tell, because especially around men with stress. Okay, what do they do with stress? Okay, well, if they go look at porn or they lash out verbally, like, wait a minute, like this is not okay. I don't want that. Versus, oh, hey, I need to take a break. I'm feeling really heightened. I need to go for a walk because I don't want to mistreat you. I can work with that. Right. So they are stepping into their wise adult. We call that the wise adult, versus letting their adaptive adolescent or their wounded little child lead them. Right.
Yeah.
So is their wise adult actually leading?
Yeah. Beautiful.
And I love the way you frame that because it means it requires that rather than hiding from the big bad wolf of conflict, we don't pick fights, but we let our full selves show up from the earliest stages so we can get a sense of how is the real me met by the woman or man in front of me? And where am I feeling? Bridgett, you used the word chiseling. Like, where am I feeling that uncomfortable rubbing up, and how do we both meet it? If she at the earliest sign of um like conflict throws an accusation of I don't feel safe and is unwilling to talk about something, that might be an indicator that like this isn't we're not aligned. Being able to connect and talk appropriately for stages of relationship, talk about what is happening is a sign. Okay, maybe we can work through. Maybe we can walk through together. I think the other thing I'd just say briefly is being patient with the process and knowing I don't have to know everything on day
That's right.
one. We got
Yeah.
time and patience to explore.
Yeah. Totally. I love the saying, we don't fall in love, we grow in love, right? And so it's the slow growth. It's just the
Mm,
slow growth that you get to see over time, who this person really is.
yeah, so great. One of the main threads of your work, Andrew, is on the pornographic style of relating. I would love for us to talk about what that is and how does that show up in relationships.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, what I call pornographic style of relating, or PSR for short, is when pornography becomes your main mentor of your sexuality. So for me, I grew up, in the 1990s purity culture, Southern Baptist Church in the South, right? And so we were taught sex is terrible, sex is bad, unless when you get married, then it's awesome. So that was the end of sex education in the church. Sex is terrible, sex is bad, don't do it until you're married, then it's awesome. So that was it. So then we also have this other, with my generation particularly, is the first generation of internet pornography in our homes, right? With dial up. And so you have these two competing narratives. So you have this extreme over sexuality that is teaching us how to have sex. And then you have this incredible shame based sexuality that says kill your desire, kill your sexuality. So it creates this weird interplay, right? And so a pornographic style of relating is when pornography, like for me, I was, used pornography for about 13 years, and it really taught me a certain way of being, right? So that way of being is the work that I have to do in my sexual development, because pornography became my primary guide and my teacher. So it filled the gap that the church and my parents did not fill. right? So that creates certain types, and I can go through them quickly, but one of them, it creates this type of control, right? So so when you have a pornified view of sex, you control more, right? Because when you're practicing, you're the one swiping, you're the one, well, I want this, I want this. It's all about you, it's all about your arousal, right? You get to create your own rituals versus healthy, redeemed sexuality, right? Is about both partners rooted in maturity and freedom. So it's control versus freedom. The second one, that PSR creates objectification, right? So when I look at thousands and thousands of naked women seared into my mind, right? They become objects. Women are objects to be devoured. How can you serve me? Right? So it's this innate selfishness, with the objectification versus honor, right?
Yeah.
We are all image bearers of God, and we have to step into our honor. Um,
Mhm.
do you want me to keep going? I've got some more. Or do you want to stop
Yeah.
there for a
Well,
second?
yeah. Keep going.
Please. Yeah, I'd love it.
Yeah. So the third category is speed, right? So it's the rapid pace of relationships that quickly resembles a quick climax and intensity, around pornography, quick consumption versus gradual. There's a gradual build, it's a slow build, a strong foundation of balanced intimacy, growth, right? Um, and so the fourth one is hunger, where the pornographic sex is about, right, that I have this cavernous
Yeah.
need, and really, it's the wound that I'm trying to project onto pornography because I feel like she sees me. Her eyes make me feel loved. I feel like a man. I feel strong. I don't have to feel like a weak little boy, that I actually am. And so the redeemed category of hunger is healthy desire. It's no longer a desperation. I want you, but I don't need you to be okay. I'm going to be okay without you, but I want you. Right. And the fifth category is isolation, right? So the PSR creates such an isolation, behind closed doors with my own computer screen. It kills relationality and it kills communion and community, right? And so communion is a shared open bond with another person, vulnerability, right? Versus that guarded, it's almost like I call it a sanctuary where end up men come to worship pornography, and they build this sacred relationship that they don't want to give up because it's so precious. It's just theirs, but it's so isolated. That has nothing to do with connection and community. And the final one is fantasy, right? So pornography, over years of consuming it, it teaches you that, oh, all women want me. Of course they want my body. Of course they like, because what is the lie that porn's been telling us? As for me, as a 13-year-old boy, as I started consuming porn, oh, women want me. Oh, well, of course that creates then me being abusive. Of course that creates me being inappropriate and not understanding consent because all women want me, right? That's what porn taught me. Versus the
Mm.
healthy redeemed category is authenticity, right? Is authentic reality,
Mm.
truth, not fantasy, but living in truth. We both get to voice complaints. We both get to have our hopes and share desires, right? That is what is most true and most intimate. We can't have intimacy without truth, right? It's like oil and water. And so that fantasy is the opposite. So those are the things that make up a pornographic style of relating versus a
Yeah.
redeemed sexuality.
Yeah. That's so good. I'm curious if you have an example of what is the what is that dynamic shift look like from that consumptive uh like consumptive lust in a relationship, because I think
Yeah.
a lot of the men that I work with is especially post recovery work, and when we're in this reintegration, like I have a good history with sobriety. I am doing my work. I am in therapy. Now I'm dating this beautiful woman, and all of a sudden I have sexual desire again. And I feel a little suspicious of like, can I embody this well? Or,
Yeah.
oh no, am I slipping back into my old lustful patterns? What's that shift towards healthy sexual
Sure.
desire?
Yeah. I like to use the example of living in Seattle for 15 years and when Mount Rainier would come out. And it was just so beautiful, this mountain that tower over the city. And it would literally leave you in awe because of her absolute radiant beauty, right? And so when you think of that posture of this beautiful mountain, and then you think of honoring the beauty of a woman, and what could you approach that woman very similar to that mountain in awe? God
Mm,
made her well. She is beautiful. That is very different posture than when you see a woman jogging and you turn your neck and swivel and you start to consume her. She is not yours to take. She is not yours to undress. You do not have consent. And no, that is consumption. That is objectification. So when you are in a relationship and you enjoy her beauty, yes, and she can enjoy yours, and that our desires are good, and we are meant for heaven, we are meant for goodness, we are meant for beauty. But that is very different than I want to conquer you, I want to
mm,
dominate you, I want to take you. Because to
mhm,
me, that's when it switches from awe to beauty to actually consumption and devour of beauty.
So beautiful. Oh my goodness. I think about, I imagine Mount Rainier behind me and thinking, in awe, I want to discover. I
That's
want
right.
to
mm,
go hike and look. And what about that pass? And what about that
Yes,
there's a desire to know, but when I want to consume, maybe I just want to put the sticker on my water bottle that says I hiked Mount Rainier and
exactly.
check,
Yes,
check with disregard for knowing. Oh, I love hearing you talk about this. This is so, so good. So, so helpful.
yes.
Thank you. Yeah. Um, we are in a cultural moment. We are in a moment where the emphasis on emotionally healthy men being able to regulate their partners feels like a requirement, right? Whereas in times past, he not needed to be 6 feet tall and have a six pack and make six figures. He also now has to be able to emotionally regulate his dysregulated partner. It feels like that's a requirement of healthy men. And while that's important, sometimes it can feel like there's maybe a punting is a way we could say it of the relationships uh, regulation to man. Now, emotional regulation of the partner kind of takes away, um, takes away a man's ability to have his emotional experience. How do you think about the balance between self-regulation,
Yes.
vulnerability, and co-regulation in
Yeah,
healthy
yeah.
masculinity?
Yeah, I think so many of us men wanna pass that work onto our partners, that we think it's your job to mother us. We want you to do that work. And so what I encourage our men to do is actually begin to own fully. And I don't care if your wife's or your partner is so unhealthy, you've got to do the work for you. Because what I see, the type of men that I work with, we're constantly kind of pushing it onto the women to do more than us. And so I constantly preach ownership of all that's going on inside of you. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this versus but that just might be the type of clientele that I work with because I work in the intersection of narcissism and, grandiosity. But we don't want to take responsibility for our feelings. We want to make it everybody else's fault. Right. And so that's what I'm constantly preaching of. And here's that happens. If you can own it and your partner can own it, right? You own your part and I own my part. That's what I think the healthiest team can can work together. It's when one person's kind of blaming the other and one person has a high level of self-contempt. I call them the goat. They're kind of taking right and then the other person's the savior and then it creates this power imbalance where I can do no wrong and I'm in my pride and you're a piece of crap and you're in your shame and
mm,
it's just this gross dynamic.
I think we're getting to the heart of it, and I think your answer helps me understand, like, when you talk about the kind of men that you tend to work with, once you are not inclined to own, I'm having an emotion and I need to manage. That's my job. It makes me think of men on the other end of the spectrum. Maybe we would say that they're stuck in nice guy syndrome, and so
Yeah,
they've
right.
decided that this means to be a healthy man means I just take all of her emotions, and that's my job. I mean, gosh, that just describing it sounds exhausting.
Yes.
But it's also not, it's not what you're framing as, and I agree with you, healthy relationship.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and we definitely have those nice guys as well, and that goes back to socialization of how did you survive growing up? How did you well, you became the nicest guy. That's how you decided to get love, right? That was we call that the adaptive adolescent. It's still a young part of you, and it doesn't serve you well in adult relationships. It doesn't help you now survive. And so you've got to realize, okay, being the nice guy doesn't mean I just become an asshole. No, it actually
Yeah.
means I can actually, how do I be kind, but also remain in my strength?
Yeah. Mm, that's good. I have some other questions I want to ask, but something that just came to mind when you were talking about that is not sure that we've talked about this specifically. We talked a little bit about it with Jay, but um, how do our relationships with our mom and dad impact the way that we show up in romantic relationships as an adult?
Yeah, I think it's huge because what sets the frame of your femininity, your idea of the feminine, what sets the stage for your idea of the masculine? That's the first impact of, oh, this is what a man is supposed to be. Oh, this is what a woman is supposed to be. Or what happens if your mom and dad have a terrible marriage and then they begin to emotional enmeshment, triangulation, where it's normally the opposite gendered spouse will pick the opposite gendered child and then they'll get their emotional needs met. I see that all the time because that comes out in sexuality so much. So it's like, this is a common thing that we have to begin to take seriously our story. I don't care if your mom and dad, you think they're perfect. They're not Jesus. They failed
Mhm.
you. We can tell the truth. Thank you, mom
Yeah.
and dad. You did, I hear so many stories of great mom and dads, but then they didn't talk a single word about sexuality. Okay, that's a big fail. And your
Yeah.
parents can still be good parents and
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they really drop the ball in talking to you about your own body and your own sexuality and what was safe touch and what wasn't. Can we agree on that? Right. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Typically, good humans are both depravity and
Mm,
glory.
Good humans are both so good. There's spaciousness in that to say,
Yes, completely.
if I can if I can offer that to my parents, I might be able to offer that to myself and say, I'm
Yes.
both.
Exactly.
mhm.
And it's not that black and white thinking that we don't wanna do that complex thinking. We just wanna make them all good or all bad, and that's not reality. That's not human nature. There's good and bad in all of us. But so what I tell people to do, no, we're not just trying to, steamroll our parents. We're just trying to tell the truth. Just tell me the
Yeah.
truth.
Mm,
Just tell the truth, right? Tell me about their goodness. Tell me about how they failed you.
yeah. I think I see this a lot. I think about my own dating history and, friends and clients of we do not want to protect our partner's reputation at the cost of telling the truth.
That's
And
right.
so obviously speak on like honoring, but to really let, you mentioned the term earlier of cleaning up your side of the street. And as I look at my story, I go, oh, I'm really good at cleaning up my side of the street, but I'm not so good about then I go clean up the other person's side of the street. And that makes sense. That makes sense in my story and how I got there. And so um even in my own journey of saying like, okay, what does it look like to say, yeah, like not protecting a partner's reputation at the cost of saying, this is where I feel insecure about introducing this person to my people, or this is, and what is that information telling me, right? Like actually leaning into that growth edge to say, what's happening for me in that dynamic, what's happening for the partner in that situation, and how do we let that discomfort and that provoking nature of blending two lives like really be a really healing part of the journey.
Yes. And when both people can do that, that's where real goodness can come because that humility is created.
Mm, it's
It
beautiful.
it also, like, what you're saying, Bridget, it means we don't have to be married before we get to have those redemptive experiences. Like, in our
Absolutely.
dating of the people that will are asked out and respond in those relationships, there's potential for a formative, a healing, a redemptive experience. Whether they're our forever person or not, in showing up to honor ourselves and the other person, we get this beautiful opportunity to grow, and we get the reps in for when we do find our person, and we
Yes.
can be more equipped to keep growing in that way. So, so good.
Yeah, Andrew, I'd be curious your thoughts on that. I feel like I carry a lot of rage around that topic of purity culture so indoctrinated us of like you only have so much of yourself to give and if you give it away to the wrong person and I'm like that's just so first of all gross and not how love's expansive capacity works in the world. Like I even talk about like the pain I feel with saving yourself for marriage. It's like I'm not even talking about that in a sexual sense. I'm saying you must learn how to be fully given and fully yielded to love and partnership and creativity and collaboration for a really long time. That's not something that's just going to magically appear. And so, what does it look like for us to show up really honoring the person in front of us to take a journey of self exploration and discovery in another person? And also blessing that, like, this might not be the person that I'm in partnership with forever.
Yep. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. And all I know is is continuing to do your own work is like the only way. I can't control my wife. My wife, PhD, brilliant, does like the moment we try to control each other, it goes sideways, right? We have to fully surrender and okay, like there's goodness in her and there's goodness in me, and we both have to do our own work and continue to, even though we've been doing this for 20 years. We both did our own personal intensives this year, and where it's like okay, we continue to have to do our own work. It doesn't stop, but the volume does go down, right? The volume does go down, and that's the
Thank you,
that's the
Jesus.
goodness of that. Yes.
Man, it's this invitation to keep showing up and to know that like there's some component. I don't know how to describe it perfectly, but there is a component of purity culture. I'm experiencing this as a woman that tacitly said to be a good wife is to be your husband's sidekick. Like there's a truncating of the
Right.
glory of me as a woman and what I might be motivated toward, God forbid you be ambitious about something or care about some issue deeply. So, because as a good wife, I'm I'm under his, not just authority, but his dream and vision. And the way you just said, my wife and I did our own personal intensive this year made me think he's saying to bring my full glory to my relationship requires I keep I maintain my individuality, my differentiation, right?
Exactly.
Like I have to be a
Exactly.
person to bring to this
Exactly.
thing.
Exactly. Yes, and that's the only way it works, right? That's it. And the moment I want to pawn off my work to somebody else, or you see it a lot and people are like, oh, I just want to follow this guru, and then well I went to did this person's, this is my seventh intensive, Andrew. I'm just like, what? You like, no, like, w- stop pawning off your healing to just another guru. Take responsibility for your own life, right? And do the work for you internally, because no one's going to heal you.
Can, yeah,
Right.
so good.
So good. Um, so question about the importance of being on your own journey and in doing your own work and also having compassion that we are all humans at different parts in that healing journey. I talk a lot with women who are they've spent a lot of year and a lot of money doing the work. And so there's this tension that I often feel them express of gosh, am I being too judgmental of this guy? Like, he maybe has not done the same storywork program that I have, or doesn't know who Andrew Bauman is, or whatever it is. Like, what is this? Um, I don't know what I'm looking for. Like, what is the? Lauren, need help with a question. Um,
How can we know the guy that we're interacting with
Yeah.
is on the journey, on the road enough?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's great. It's a great question. A couple thoughts. One, behavior is the language, right? So how does he live? How does he act? Are you watching him? Are you watching him read the books? Are you making him? Are you saying, are you, is he going to his own therapy on his own? Is he choosing to do what he wants to do? Or is it you are the ones leading him, living him different books? Oh, did you read this book? Did you? Well, not yet. Not. Did you go to this group? No, not yet. Like, that's exhaust. No, if he's motivated to do it, he's going to do it. So here's the thing, what happens so much, so many men, they underfunction. So then the wife or the girlfriend or
Mhm.
whoever is in a relationship feels
Yeah.
the underfunctioning. So then they overfunction as,
Mhm.
as, as a way to, in a sense, pull them up. And that's not how it works. The underfunctioning
Yeah.
man actually then just resents you,
Yeah.
right? But as we're manipulating you to overfunction. So you're damned either way, right?
Yeah.
So no, don't overfunction if he's underfunctioning. That's not how it
Mm.
works. Both need to function at a high level, right? Both of them need to function. And so yeah, so watch, sit back and watch. Don't overfunction, make him do it. And then the second point of that would be trust your intuition, trust your gut. I truly believe God lives in your body, so trust your body. Trust the voice of God. And I know maybe, well, I've been wrong in the past. I've been the healthier you get, the more in tune you'll be with your intuition.
Yeah. Mm.
So much. It makes me think also of like questioning the rescuing tendency. If you've asked the question and then observed the behavior, noticing, man, I want to jump in there and be like, well, maybe we can get the audiobook version. Let's let our next date night be listening to it together. Well, I have this great coach and I have their discount code. I'll pay for this. Like watching and noticing, when am I trying to help him? It requires this radical belief that this beautiful desire in my heart does not require that I do it for this man. I love the way you said he's going to resent you for being the rescuer that he's requiring.
Yep, exactly.
I know you can't speak to every situation because you're not sitting in the room with them, but generally, what's happening for women when they're stepping into that rescuing role in a dating relationship?
Well, the truth is it's doing something for them as well, right? So whatever their story is, whatever, you got to explore what that gives them, right? You got to explore their own wounding. And normally it's some acting out behavior of, this is what I did with my dad, or, the only way he would be present with me is if I, you know, did XYZ. If I did the dishes before he came home, then he would tell me thank you and look me in the eyes, or, whatever it is. It's normally a reenactment of something they're trying to get their needs met through service, through being the good girl, right? So
Yeah.
it's whatever it is, it's still, if I can play this role, then you'll love me.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
because it feels familiar, we go to it. But man, it's also super empowering, Andrew, to hear you say when you relinquish that role, you open yourself up to the kind of relationship that does not require you to be
Correct.
good to get the love. You have to put that down before you get the other thing, not fight this
Yes.
man to be that. Yeah.
E exactly, and that's the healthier you get, right? That's what you'll draw that type of person, right? Because I remember dating my wife, this is 20 something years ago, and I was like, "Oh, wow, she's got all these goals. She's a powerful woman." I'm a pastor at the time, a youth pastor, and, I remember bringing her to introduce to my pastor, my friend, and he pulled me aside. He said, "Don't you want more of like a helpmate? Like, she's got a lot
Mhm.
of goals, a lot of ambitions, right? Don't you want somebody more like, that will support you in your goals?" Because he knew I had a lot of goals too, right? I had a lot of visions and goals. And it was so interesting that my wife had to become small for me to be big, rather than, wait, don't I want somebody that can run just as fast as me? Don't I want somebody that can inspire me to run when I'm tired? Right,
Yeah.
and my wife's a freaking boss, right? So she's a go-getter, and I'm like, it's hard to keep up with her, and luckily I'm writing my 8th book, so I'm getting close, like where we're both like, that's a
Yes.
partnership, right?
Mhm.
That's a partnership. Um, rather than she has to be small so I can be big. That's what insecure men do.
Can I ask you a follow-up question, Andrew?
Please.
Hearing this from a mentor, don't you want someone who is going to help you out, not be caught up in her own thing? Like, but you also said you've been doing this marriage thing for 20 years. Like, what inspired you to keep pursuing and ultimately marry this woman?
I knew I have a strong Enneagram 8, right? I knew I can bulldoze over people. And I had been, dating girls long enough, women, whatever. I was younger, but where I was like, okay, I can manipulate. I'm good with language, and I can bulldoze people. And I don't want to be worshipped. I need somebody that can take me on, that can call me out of my crap. Like I knew myself enough at that point to know what I needed is that I needed a strong partner because I was a strong man. And my shadow, if you know your shadow, you know your darkness. It's like, okay, I know what would be good for me and what wouldn't. And now, yes, sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, it would be easier if I had like a soft, quiet, submissive woman rather than a powerful, it's like, sure, some of my darker moments, I'm like, yeah, that would have been nice. But like, that's not my true self. Right? That's my insecure little boy talking.
Mm, yeah. Wow. So thankful just for our conversation today. I'm curious. We want to hear more about your new men's online community, Manland. But before
Yes.
we wrap up this conversation today, is there anything that we haven't said that you want to say, or any advice you'd give to Andrew 20 something years ago dating men
Yeah.
you'd want him to know?
Yeah, I know a lot of women can be discouraged about the choices out there, and I just for men and women, I see on the front lines of men's work every single day, men working hard to become better men, addressing their issues, and confronting their integrity and having courage. So men are changing, men are healing, and you can use that as encouragement moving forward. Whether you're a man who continues to need to do more work, we're welcome to help you, or a woman who's longing for a healthy man, a partner. Um, don't quit. Keep pushing in.
And tell us more about the ways in which you serve men. We want, especially our
Yeah.
male listeners, to know how can they connect with you? What offerings do you have?
Yeah. So our main two ways, you can check us out on christiancc.org. That's our offerings. So we do a foundational men's program workshop. That's every month. We have men fly in from all over the world, and do this work in person and hands-on story work, somatic work. We do a co-ed group as well for women who have been harmed by men and men who have harmed women. And we put them together in a room, and they're 6 inches from each other's face all weekend working on their gendered wounds. So we do the in-person stuff, and then we also have our new online community, and it's called Manland. And basically, men are lonely, men are isolated, and so we offer free groups. I offer office hour every week. Get online with men every week. There, we offer groups, a book club, so everything's free when you buy the membership, and you can engage on all the different writings and the different chat rooms and stuff. So it's been very cool. So we just opened that up this month, last month, and we have over 100 plus men already in there engaging.
Wow.
Amazing. So good.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Looking forward to just the way people get to listen to this conversation, whether it's on, release day or down the road, that it would meet them at the right place and the right time to continue to inspire hope and healing in their story.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much for spending your time with us today. If this conversation encouraged you, challenged you, or helped you feel a little less alone in your dating journey, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who might also need the encouragement. You'll find links in the show notes to connect with today's guest, as well as other ways to work with Lauren and me through coaching and other opportunities designed to support you in dating with clarity, trust, and integrity. We believe you don't have to shut down your desire or abandon your values to build a meaningful connection, and we're honored to walk alongside you as you navigate that journey. You can also find us on Instagram at Dating and Desire, or we'll continue the conversation. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.